All right, I think we're live. It's Wednesday, April 19th, 2020 Trizay. And it's me, Dr. Z. Come and hang out. I don't know what y'all are doing, but I want y'all to be not doing it with me. Ashley Stewart is the first one here. This is awesome. Supporter Tribe represent. So I've been gone for a minute, and a lot has happened and nothing has happened. So I just put out a video that was originally on Angelo DeLullo's channel, an interview I did with him about what had happened over the last couple of weeks with my wife, myself, Suzanne Chang, who has a YouTube channel called Suzanne Non-Duality, where she talks about her own experience with awakening, realization, no self, realization, kind of ego death type stuff. And it is definitely not amateur hour when it comes to this stuff, but it's also such a clear transmission from what this is, which is radiant emptiness with nobody that it's happening to, but yet the appearance of all of this. It's it's impossible to talk about, but it can kind of be transmitted in a way from somebody who's realized in that way. So she came, hung out with me and my wife. We made a couple videos, which I haven't released except for our supporter tribe. We did a 2-hour video with Suzanne and my wife showed up. And so in the course of this, yeah, a lot happened. But the video I put out with Angelo talks about my wife's own big shift and my own that came from basically unrepressing a bunch of emotional stuff that over the course of 20 years of marriage just happens to happen. And in the course of that unrepression, the release of all that and the authenticity and the honesty and the vulnerability and the kind of knowing that, there's really not anyone even doing this. So what is there to lose with being radically honest with the person that you have built a life with, right? And in the process of that opening, like both of us really, she had a massive awakening. And it's like walking around talking like a Zen master. Like we go on these walks where she's like, there's really no me here, which is kind of crazy, like stuff like that. and of course, all the strong emotion that comes with that, the sense of loss, the sense of grief, all the raw stuff that you've been repressing. Now it's not possible to repress. So you're doing what they typically call shadow work, but it's happening so fast. And it's all kind of grace. It's all cause and conditions lining up that allow this to happen. You don't do anything. That becomes very clear. You can't really talk about it, which makes it paradoxical when you try to talk about it. But I feel like, in a way, I've got all this channel and stuff, and people who watched the video I did with Angelo that we put out yesterday and Angelo put out on a channel a week ago, we're really feeling it. So I figure let's just keep doing whatever it is we do, even though there's no one doing it and there's nothing to do and there's really nothing happening. There's the paradox. And it's only a paradox to the mind. It's not a paradox to reality, because reality doesn't give an F about paradox. Let's read some comments and get some questions. Phil says, this is so timely. My boss was being a douche and I was feeling butthurt, and this was a great wake-up call. Dude, so listen, on the relative level, your boss is a douche, you're feeling butthurt. So there's all this like thought-based world interacting with itself. And it's really only real to the extent that it relates to other thought-based stuff. And it's all just appearing in the thought space, which is consciousness, that sense. But under that, the underlying reality, which can be realized, it can't be talked about really, it can't be understood by the mind, it's beyond the mind. So some people say, oh, well, do you lose your mind when you become whatever, there's a shift or whatever? No. The mind is there, it's appearing, it's doing what it does, it's appearance. But there's a deeper knowing that the mind is appearing in and as, in a sense, radically nothing at all that's somehow awake. And if that doesn't make sense, it's not gonna make sense at all, because the mind can't grasp that. But so on one level, your boss is a dick and you're having this drama. And on another level, absolutely nothing is happening to anyone. In other words, the character of you appears in this movie to be having this conflict with this other character who's behaving like a douchebag. But when it's really deeply, instinctively at the DNA level or below known that that's actually empty of any real substance, it's an appearance like a movie, and you just got made a rookie mistake and thought, oh, I am the movie. Whereas in reality, what you are is not describable. It's a complete abject mystery, but it can be experienced. And when that happens, then you can go back. The movie just reestablishes, it's still there. Your thoughts are there, your traumas are there, emotions are there, but they're experienced completely and purely as what they are without any secondary thought structure that says they're my experiences. That's my trauma. This is my butthurt about my boss. Instead, it's like butthurt is arising. Oh, look at that. And as a result, the kind of things that will come out of your mouth are radically authentic. And for some reason, and I don't know why this is, and I don't think there is an answer, they seem to click in a way that things just flow instead of being apparently resisted by that same thought process. It's very hard to talk about, but that's kind of what life starts to feel like, a flow state of everything happening. It doesn't mean you don't have very uncomfortable things arise. They do. Doesn't mean it's not a huge struggle or feel like a huge struggle. The difference is the fundamental delusion that we are somehow a real self going through a real life in real time and space suddenly evaporates, and then the apparent everything that's happening is just lived so fully and presently and immediately, and then it falls away and it falls away and it falls away and it falls away, and new, like a baby seeing everything for the first time. But unlike a baby that hasn't established a sense of self, you've already gone through the hero's journey. You've already gone through, okay, I'm a baby, everything's oceanic oneness, I can't tell the difference between my mother and me and the environment, and it's just, and I'm dumb as a rock. Like there's no thought-based intelligence. Well, then you go through, I form an identity. Oh, I'm different than that image in the mirror. And then, oh, I'm different than them. I'm different than and actually what I want actually matters because I can get something that someone else doesn't have because there's apparent scarcity. And you go through the world building your life and your ego and your structures and your spouse and your kids and your all that. And you do all that, or you don't, or there's some suffering or something, and something happens, cause and conditions align, where the curiosity arises, is this right? Because something feels wrong, because all this stuff isn't bringing me true peace, true happiness. And I've had glimpses of that through, I don't know, random flow states, being in nature, psychedelic experience, tragedy, where suddenly everything just becomes clear. And then it's like a snowball that you can't stop because you're not doing it. And all the pieces start to pop in, and the bodhisattvas, the people who help you, pop up everywhere. And the next thing you know, you're on the other side of what they call awakening, which isn't an event. It's your natural state. It's an energetic shift in this conditioned energy field that's you, that we're calling you. That's really an appearance in infinity. That's actually what we are. And then this relative world looks and feels and is experienced very differently. There's a radical intimacy. There's a radical flow. There's a radical acceptance. And the unfolding continues. And the emotions you've refused to feel by jumping into thought and story are now there, front and center, and you got to feel them, which means you're going to cry all night long. You're going to sob. You're going to have grief. You're going to have sadness. You're going to have anger. You're going to feel trauma. All this stuff's going to arise. And it's going to keep arising. And that energy field that's you is going to keep getting lighter and lighter. And the things that arise are going to be less sticky and less sticky. And the self, this feeling that you are this independent entity, that Zubin sitting here talking to you, starts to become very transparent to the point where it's more and more seen that there's nothing there. There's just this happening beautifully for no one, and it's perfect. So that's the hero's journey. So now you're on the other end of awakening. You're not like a baby where you don't know, you're a dumbass. You come out on the other end with the wisdom that you've built over a life of living in the relative world. So you know how to work in the relative world. You don't become a dummy. You don't go move to a convent necessarily. You might if you choose to do that, if that's your sort of desire. But you continue to pay taxes and do a YouTube show and go be a radiologist and whatever it is you do. You just do it knowing there's no you doing it and knowing that it's all exactly right. And you feel all the things fully and you act from pure authenticity. And if every human being actually did that, we wouldn't have the shit mess that apparently exists in the relative world. We'd have something very different, a different kind of shit mess. All right, comments. Hey, George, good to see you. Mohil says, thank you, Dr. Z. I've been struggling on my mental health journey. And although the most time I get lost in what you see, but it still relaxes me. So yeah, the mental health journey is part of the hero's journey, struggling with those issues, depression, anxiety, bipolar, ADD, whatever it is. It's part of our relative world of experience. Thought, going to identity, going to belief, going to story. That is how the relative mind works. And what I'm pointing at actually transcends and includes the relative mind. It says, here's the relative mind and all our struggle. And that's actually beautiful. It's actually the expression of nothing showing up as something. And it just happens that in your expression, there's a mental health struggle. That's beautifully perfect, as hard as that is to swallow. That's how it's showing up. You can't really, there's nothing you're doing because there's not a you doing it. So when that's seen to be just as it is, there's a deeper transcendent kind of realization of, oh, it's actually all empty of any real substance. It's appearing out of nothing, and it's only, here's the key, it's only now. There is no past and future. There never was. There has always and already been this radiant, eternal now. It's not a moment, because a moment implies time. It is this. This. The sound of my voice, the image that you're seeing, the sounds in the room, happening and falling away and happening and appearing and disappearing and appearing and disappearing. And in this radiant now is our entire life story, birth and death and relationships and all of that, mental health journey is all happening only now, appearing and disappearing from radical, empty mystery that is the core of what we are. And you can't know what that is with the mind. So you transcend the mind, but you still include it so you can use it. And then when you re-embody, and this happened to me over the last 3 weeks, you move from this kind of head-based world to a much more embodied, heart-based knowing. And it's hard to describe what that is, but it almost feels like your chest has been blown open and everyone can see that you're just this radiant, open emptiness, and you're feeling everything openly and unguarded. And to the mind, that can be terrifying, but to the heart, it's the natural state. And you can use the mind. Let's look at some comments. Yeah, Joseph Campbell is the man, George. The hero's journey. Let's see. R.A. Hess, moving away from the terms right and wrong, but rather healthy and unhealthy in the very moment before you. Yeah, I mean, the Buddhists call it like right action and skillful and unskillful thoughts and actions and all that. Honestly, if I'm being totally honest, everything is unfolding absolutely like a the entire universe is maximally exerting itself to create this moment. It's actually perfect. And the realization of that perfection, for some reason, seems to manifest as people showing up as not assholes, as radically, unconditionally loving, heart-open, heart-centered, apparent beings. So you don't even have to spend a lot of time going right action, wrong action, healthy, unhealthy. You just be from this knowing, this radical intimacy of reality. And those aspects, they're like facets of a diamond. They just show up. Now, that's not to say that you use this to bypass, not being a dick and all this other stuff. It may be that on the relative, you still have to do work there. But in an absolute sense, this realization is the fundamental prerequisite. This is just my own sense from this, for living a life that is as authentic, natural, and paradoxically purely good as it can be. Because for the apparent self, everything is a struggle. Everything is win and loss. Everything is avoiding death. Everything. But when there's no self and only this radiance, which shows up as Zubin, say, or Lara, there's just spontaneous and perfect action. And more often than not, it's just right. And it's all energetic too. Thoughts are just ghosts. This life is just energy. And this sounds like total horseshit woo-woo, especially coming from like someone like me that is really quite a skeptic. I mean, I made a whole brand out of debunking nonsense. And I'm telling you, and so did Einstein say this, that everything is energy. So what does that mean in practice? It means feel your body. Feel, allow yourself to embody this moment. Drop from your thought world, which is a ghost world, a dream world, into this, into the body sensations, into the sights and colors and shapes in the room, into the sounds coming apparently from nowhere, out of emptiness. If you drop the label of bird, me, bird, distance, and you hear a bird sound, truly hear it, like just the bird sound. No hearer, no bird, not even sound, just that, what it is. That in itself is enlightenment. That's awakening. Because that's what's actually happening. Just that. And then the next thing, and the next thing, and it's gone, it's gone, it's gone, it's gone, it's gone. And then the mind after the fact puts it together into a story which allows us to work in the relative world. That's all fine. You don't have to get rid of that. It's there as a tool when you need it. But there's a deeper knowing that everything is just so. It's just this. It's just right. Yeah, Lisa says, yes, you did. Who would have thought 10 years ago? I know 10 years ago that I'd be talking like this. Come on. That's real. Realization will do that to you. And it's funny. I read some of the comments on the video I did about my wife's awakening that I did with Angelo, and most of them get it. Like they're like, oh my God, like that I can feel what you're transmitting directly, and I've struggled with this too, and so on. And again, I think this is an exceptional story. Like it just happened that there was grace and luckiness that it clicked the way that it did. But it can easily click that you're the only one on the journey and your family isn't, and that's okay too. And sometimes things happen like divorce, and of course. But what's radical about this is, in order to really wake up, you have to deeply know that everything is a story and can be let go of, and may be let go of, and has to be let go of. You have to die. And that's kind of what happened to my wife and I over the last couple of weeks. It was kind of death. Like, oh, everything we thought we've kind of go through the day with the usual conditioned pleasantries and stable, comfortable stuff. Underneath it could be complete chaos, complete destabilization. And that's fine. That's exactly okay, because there's no one to do it to the other. There's no one to lose. There's just this. And when that happened, it both clicked for us, like, wow, it's really nice to be with you. Like, better than nice. Like, this is perfect. And, we went on a trip with the kids, and it was just radiantly perfect every second, even when there was struggle. It was like, wow. Kind of living from that place is indescribably, it's like dropping a massive burden, or, Angela uses this term, like driving with the brakes on. That's what it feels like in normal, asleep kind of unconscious life, which is most of our existence. And when that kind of falls, there's nothing to celebrate, because it feels like it's not a story. It didn't happen to someone. It's not an accomplishment. It's not something you've gained. It's always been this way. And all it is it's seen. Now, you're not seeing it. It's now seen. So then you live. That's it. Now, there are the questions of, how do you get there? And this is a very paradoxical question, because you can't get there. And yet, the people who seem to have these realizations have often struggled for years seeking. Even my wife, who's never meditated a day in her life, has not been on any spiritual journey, had this massive awakening. In a way, her whole life has been a seeking spiritual journey. So it's almost like awakening is an epiphenomenon. It's almost like it's going to happen energetically if it's going to happen. And it turns out that if that's going to happen to apparently you in this life, there are certain things that show up as an epiphenomenon in the relative world of this awakeness knowing itself, starting to know itself. And those phenomenon are first maybe dissatisfaction with what this relative world is. Then it's maybe a flow state or a glimpse or a peak experience. And you're like, what is that? And then an obsession and a seeking. Those just show up as a result of whatever this energy field is starting to unwind. You never did that. You never caused awakening. You can never actually seek awakening. First of all, because it's already here. It's just this. But forget about that. You can't do anything. But when you look back at the movie, you realize, oh, all of that seeking, all of those meditation retreats, all of those whatever I did, or you did, or you're trying to do, or your family's trying to do, or your spouse is trying to, whatever it is, all of that showed up as an epiphenomenon of the energetic process that was already perfectly happening. And then the mind says, I did these things to wake up, and you can too. So what does that mean? Well, I'm not telling you don't do anything. I'm saying, hey, if you find yourself doing stuff, go ahead. Just relax. Because when you really know that this is a process beyond any sense of you, you can relax and you can go do the things. You can learn meditation. You can learn mindfulness. You can do self-inquiry. You can do natural meditation. You can go to retreats. You can do psychedelics. You can do guided psychedelic journeys, psilocybin, LSD, whatever, ayahuasca, DMT. You can do those things, but they're not waking you up. Waking up is just happening, and those are a phenomenon around it. So take it all very lightly. And actually, the more lightly you take it, and you're not doing it, but just hearing me say this might click for you. It might just be part of the causes and conditions that allow this to relax, at which point you stop doing anything. And when the mind stops, boom, there it is. It's just like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how else to say it. That's become so clear in the last few days. I was talking to my wife about this. It's like What did we do? What did we not do? What is this? Is this an event? It's not an event, you know? And what's crazy is I couldn't have these conversations with her 2 weeks ago at all. It would have just been like, what are you talking about? It would have sounded like alien gibberish. And then I would have felt bad. I would have felt alone. And that would have been, I just wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have thought to have the conversation. But like just this morning, we're walking on a trail and walking slowly and looking around, and we would just have these conversations like, you know, from here, and she'll say things like, you know, it's clear that there's no one doing anything. There's never been anyone doing anything. And yet it feels to us like there's something being done. And talking about the energetic of it, like that emotional release feels like an energetic kind of repatterning. And you're not doing it. If anything, it feels like you're allowing it, but that's just another thought. So in a way, what I'm saying is, I think the best you can do is open yourself to grace. Just understand that this is not, you can rest your mind. You can rest the struggle. Even if the struggle is occurring, there's a deep part of you that can know that this is all fine. This is all perfect. Oh, I went to a retreat and I didn't wake up. For 7 days I was silent. I didn't wake up. Great. That retreat is just a phenomenon coming off the energetic transformation that's happening to you. And all the doubt and all the self-hate and all the blame and all that comes up on these things, like, why can't I wake up? That's all part of it. That's all exactly right. And then the next thing happens, and the next thing happens, and maybe all it takes is somebody walks by and there's a word said and you're awake. Or suddenly you're doing emotion work and you don't even know you're doing it because you've opened up to a partner who you're being fully authentic and you're getting all of this out and you're, you know, sobbing and you're doing all this that you would never think to do because you're afraid of being humiliated, when you realize, oh, there's nobody to be humiliated. There's nothing to lose. There's just this. So why not just allow what's arising? And then boom, next thing you know, you realize this moment and you happen to run into an amazing person that points in this way, like Suzanne or Angelo, anybody online that you've seen that resonates with you. And it just, like little cogs, they just click, 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 click. There's no event. It just is seen that it's always been like this. And that's why, you know, you hear very awake people talk and you just like, shut up, dude. Of course it's easy for you. You did all these things. But from that side of it, it's quite clear nothing was done. All of that was a story too. But weirdly, the people whose story looks like that seem to be the ones that have that awakening. So what's going on? Where's the cause and effect? Well, it's not like that. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And it's going to make no sense. Blazing Stars says, what's awake trying to achieve a place of being you were in the first, what's awake trying to achieve a place of being you were in the first place? I think I know what you're saying. It's kind of garbled. But basically, you're trying to seek what's already here. Already and always been the case. And it's actually seen as that. You know, Suzanne was talking to me in my living room, and I think I told the story on the Angelo interview, and she was just saying, you know, here, you know, making eye contact and saying, this is what this is. Do you see it? There's no you seeing it. It's radically empty. It's always been this way. Birth and death don't happen in the way you think. It's always only been this. Eternal now. Always. No separation between anything. Nothing to push and pull. That's all a story. That's all thought. That's all great. That's all perfect. This is all there is. It's all there ever has been. And it's absolutely all that's needed, because what else could there be? It's just this. That's it. James says, to let go of being the character in your story is difficult. Be the author, but there's no pen, no page, no story. That's really well put. Yeah, it's like you can truly embody what's unfolding and live it fully. You can bear a human life because there's nobody bearing it. It's seen that it's all just happening. And even the idea of a self can arise. It can actually come up. But the real self that we think we are is a very complex, seemingly complex, energetic process. It's thought, it's belief, it's an energetic sense in the body that you're separate. And that can relax. That can be that can modulate. And then, like the same stuff, you still have a body, There's still thoughts. You can still entirely inhabit thought, but it's all held in a way that it can't be believed to be real in the sense that it used to be. And that's a huge liberation. It's a huge relief. And it's ongoing, the shadow work, the emotions rising, the energetic shifts, like the jolts of energy and the feeling like you're dying physically. That happens a lot. Yeah. So I'm going to have to leave in a few minutes because I got to pick up my kids, but let's see what else we got. Renata, how do you know you're awake? I feel it, then I don't. My ADD kicks in. Angela told me this once, and I think it really resonates now more than ever. You, as the mind, can never know what awakeness is. Can't even know what that is. It is beyond the mind. And it becomes so self-obvious because it's always and already the case, even when you're asleep. That's why there really is no awakening. There really is no enlightenment. There's only just, if anything, you could say the mind is the point of view here, if that's a point of view, just sees through the illusion of thought and story and belief and experiences this as just this. But there isn't even an experiencer. It's just this happening exactly perfectly. That doesn't mean you don't go and do things and change things, apparently. That's all part of the perfection, but there's no sense of agency. There's no sense of a doer. It can arise, right? But it's seen as like kind of flimsy. And that continues to soften and dissolve over apparent time. Karen Connolly says, is it awareness of what is? Well, then what's this? What's your standard awareness? Is it awareness of what isn't? Because even now, when we're aware, even of thoughts, even when we're deluded, like the delusion itself is just this. The thought world, the story, the belief, it's just this. So it's all kind of radically perfect. Right? It's all. So awareness of what is, you can't describe what it is, but you can say that in a sense, in a fundamental sense, it's a shift in identity. You no longer take yourself to be this. What you take yourself to be depends on the kind of degree of whatever realization. So you may take yourself to be consciousness after a kind of awakening, like, oh, I'm the aware field that everything's happening in. But then even beyond that is, no, that's not even right. There's no I at all. Even I am doesn't make sense. There's just this. There's just phenomena arising and disappearing out of nothing. And they're seen to be empty of substance, empty of solidity, empty of permanence, empty of any reality in and of themselves. They're like the shimmering light on the surface of a wave. And what reality is the ocean itself, having waves that look a certain way, and that's reality. Your entire life story, all of human history, the Big Bang, that's all shimmering appearance on a wave of empty awakeness is one way you could conceptualize it, which is still not right. Lefo Butler, and then well, I guess I have a little more time. Do we live to let live, or do we take control? How much control is too much? There's so many questions, Z-Dog. Loaf of butter. What a beautiful comment, actually. This is the human condition. Why? Why? What's the meaning? Do we do this? Do we do that? Do I do this? Do I do that? So what happens when we realize that that's all the mind doing what the mind does? Thought going to thought, trying to solve apparent problems in a relative world. That's great. That can be allowed. I mean, you have no choice. It's going to arise. That's fine. Or you could realize there's no meaning in that sense. Meaning has to happen for someone. What if there's no one? What if there's only this? This eternal radiance, this mystery at the heart of everything, that you, I, everything, there's no you and I, there's only this radiant mystery happening apparently. And is it even happening when nothing is permanent at all? It is a complete mindfuck mystery. And complete surrender into and as that mystery is the only route to liberation from suffering. Because it's seen clearly that even the question from that doesn't make any sense at all. And then you show up in the relative world, apparently, and things just happen. And it just so happens that when that yoke of doership is relaxed, that yoke of control is relaxed, things just seem to work, even on the relative sense. That's all I can say. Even that's saying too much, but that's all I can kind of say. Juliet, how to disengage from the chatter is a constant battle every second. I'm insane. Yeah, that's a beautiful, the fact that you know that you know that the mind is fucking crazy. Like, it is a crazy lunatic in our heads if we listen to what it's saying. Like, if you actually listen to your thoughts and you wrote every single thought down, even the little images and stuff, you'd be like, this thing is nuts. It's talking to itself. It's like going in circles. It's paranoid. It's delusional. It's daydreaming. It's always in the future, always in the past, never in the now. Thought, 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 thought. If you listen to what's in your head, really, truly, you'd be like, this thing is schizophrenic. This thing is nuts. So what's the difference between a schizophrenic? They're just saying these things out loud. They're hearing the thoughts as voices, which is what they fucking are. The schizophrenics may be, in some sense, the sanest, clearest seeing people. They just don't work well in the relative complicit world of thought. And there's so much suffering as a result because, to some extent, actually, they believe these thoughts, actually to a large extent, and that's the problem. So a schizophrenic is seeing clearly what thought is, but they're identifying with it. Or they're identifying as other than it. They're identifying as that thought is someone else and I'm here. Well, what happens when there's no identification? There's just thought arising and you can watch that crazy mental chatter. There's no you watching it. It's just like mental chatter. Ooh, thoughts are... My wife said this the other day. She said, wow, these thoughts were arising about work and some other things. And then I really saw them for what they were. They're just beautiful little ghosts. And I thanked them as they arose. I was like, thank you, thought. Just arises. Oh, got to go do the laundry. Oh, thank you, thought. Look at that. Little thought. Refers to nothing, really. It's a story. When it's my thought, I've got to go do the laundry. Yeah. Well, then it's like thought. And then you may even be like, body's going to go do the laundry. Laundry gets done. It all seems to work out. Yeah, Dr. Dan, the voices in our heads can be overwhelming. Yeah, if you believe them, if you identify with and as them, they're my voices. Gracie girl, but why? Why are we asleep in the first place? Is it just life? Adyashanti says this really well, and I think I buy this. It's a conceptual answer, which means it's not true in the absolute sense. But for fun, let's play this game. Why is it that humans are unconscious in the sense that they don't see reality as it is? They believe that they're separate. They believe that they're agents in their own life, that they have a story and that they were born and will die and that this is a story and so on, and that what they do matters in some sense, absolute sense. Well, imagine reality is empty mystery and it starts manifesting appearance. And that appearance shows up as seahorses and anemones and dinosaurs and stuff, things that are not necessarily self-aware. They don't reflect via thought on what they are. They just act in the world based on their own energetic pattern. They're just acting. And everything is self-aware. Like everything is, all experience is radiantly self-knowing. Like consciousness is just baked into the fabric of reality. It's just awake. It's all awake. So if that's the case, a cat is awake in the sense that it's just seeing things as they are and it's responding naturally and through its own conditioning. But it's not using thought to self-reflect, we don't think. So what happens when humans evolve? Consciousness keeps getting more kind of complicated, and the conditioning and the interdependence of the appearances arise humans. Well, and by the way, if you believe in God or whatever, you're religious, that's fine. Then God creates us, whatever it is. However you want to put the story together, because all of it's story. Even if there is God, that's a story. Meaning the story about God is a story, even if God exists, because we can't know from the mind any of that. So then humans start happening, and there's self-reflective thought. And this is where this pattern of awareness of this energy gets apparently trapped, because it can self-reflect and suddenly it develops this kind of reflective standing wave of identity. Oh, I am this. And it's all just appearance, but it feels at this location, when these phenomena are self-aware, as a person. And that person is asleep to the extent that they don't see what they actually are, which is not that. They think they're something they're not. And that generates something we call suffering, because it's very hard to go through a life like that, feeling separate, fighting everything around you, resisting and thinking that you could have done otherwise. It causes immense friction, and we call that suffering, which is another phenomenon, another energetic experience. So at some point, there's a glitch in the evolution of consciousness. That aware pattern of standing wave dissolves, and then it's seen. It's actually remarkable to be a human, because you go through this again. You go from baby where you're a dumbass, but you see like, oh, it's all just this, to adult where you're like, oh, it's this, to wait, because that dissolves, and then you see reality, and now awareness is aware of itself for the first time in the history of the evolution of apparent history, because there's no time, of the evolution of consciousness. And now awakeness wakes up to itself as nothing, as empty, awake mystery. And it knows itself through the evolution of the human form. And that is the beauty. If you want to find meaning in humanity, there it is, even though there really is no sense to be made of the idea of meaning. If you want to find it, look there. So being asleep is a grace, because it allows an awakening to reality as reality. Really beautiful. Lisa says, I theorize the same about schizophrenia, and others can see things that are typically not seen by the sane. Yeah, it's true. People on drugs too, same thing. But even that's all appearance. Really, realization is beyond appearance. And it's very hard to talk about, because the mind can't. That's the problem. That's why everyone isn't just woken up by teaching. It's an energetic unfolding. So the most you can do is make yourself willing by kind of feeling if this resonates. If it does, you're already on the journey. That's it. That's all you need to do. You may meditate, you can go to retreat. All that's seemed very helpful to me. In retrospect, it was seen, oh, that was just an epiphenomenon of what was unfolding anyways. That's fine. Do it. If you're called to do it, do it. I've done videos on retreat. Powerful. So, all right, now I got to go. This was fun for me, probably boring for many, interesting for maybe 3. So that's great. That's a record for me. Check out the video with Angelo. I will, on my channel and on his channel, whichever channel you want to watch it on, definitely subscribe to his channel. Subscribe to Suzanne Non-Duality if you're interested in any of this stuff. I will edit Suzanne's interview that I did with her and take my wife out of it because she showed up day 1 post-awakening. And it's so intimate and raw that I save that just for our supporters. So if you want to join our supporter group, and you can access it in your supporter feed. If you really want to see that video, you can email hello@zdogmd.com and ask nicely, and I'll send it to you. And if you want to support this movement or be a part of our Zoom meetings where we talk about this stuff, like with 30 people, Q&A, it's like a satsang kind of deal. If you know what that is, join our supporter tribe on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Locals. Just zdogmd.locals.com for Locals. All right, guys, I got to run. I love you so much. Share this video if you like it. If not, who cares? None of it matters. It's just going to do what it does. The algorithm is smarter than we are. All right, until next time, we are out. I love you guys.